All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study of Paper 30, Personalities of the Grand Universe. And we're still in Section 1, Paragraph 92, believe it or not. 92. And this is in the section on the Paradise section of the Personality Register. So we're going to start from there tonight and keep going from where we left off last Thursday. We didn't have a meeting Tuesday, so if you're looking for Tuesday's meeting, it's not out there. So, all right. Okay, so let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight to study your wonderful revelation. Pray that you'll open our hearts and minds tonight that we might remember a little bit of this and share it with friends and relatives. Help us to absorb it so that we'll remember it when we get to the mansion worlds and give us a little leg up on what's to come. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for those who listen at home and Facebook and YouTube and Vimeo and all of our different formats. And we thank you for those who open their hearts and minds to your wonderful revelation. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Eventuated transcendental beings. Sweetie, do you want to start out tonight?
All righty. 4. Eventuated transcendental beings. There is to be found on Paradise a vast host of transcendental beings whose origin is not ordinarily disclosed to the universes of time and space until they are settled in light and life. These transcendentals are neither creators nor creatures. They are the eventuated children of divinity, ultimacy, and eternity. These eventuators are neither finite nor infinite. They are absonite, and absonity is neither infinity nor absoluteness.
That's a good paragraph to get confused with to start out, isn't it? They'll hit you with all kinds of nice little terms there.
It's not
it's not this, it's not that, it's not quite this. It may be this, but it's not really this. Okay, let me see if I can unwrap this for you. All right, eventuated transcendental beings. First, let's try to figure out what a transcendental being is. I think the best definition I can come up with for a transcendental beings is a being that's not affected by time or space. They transcend both. Okay, so that's what they're trying to tell us a transcendental being is. Okay, an eventuated transcendental being is a being that is not created. A being that is not created is a being that comes into existence as needed by the deities. And that's what they call an eventuated being. In other words, as soon as that being is needed, it just appears. Okay, so we got a double whammy here. So what they're telling us about is, first of all, these beings are needed. So they're brought into existence. And these beings that are brought into existence are transcendental. They're not finite and they're not infinite. In other words, they're not like us. They don't start as creatures. And they do not go on necessarily forever like an infinite being. So they're not finite or infinite. But they say what they are absonite. So they're in between finite and absolute. Okay? And that's why they say here near the end of this that they are absonite, and absonity is neither infinity or absoluteless. In other words, just because it's an absonite being, they will not go on forever. Okay, so they're created as needed, not created, they're brought into existence as needed. They're not any eternal in any sense of the word. They're created and they're used for whatever they need to. And they call them transcendentalers. Okay, and they say here that they are not creators or creatures, either one. So we are creatures, right? First, you have to understand that. They are not creatures, and they're not creators like the Godheads. They're not like gods. They don't create things, right?
They're workers.
They're worker bees, right? And it says here, they are the eventuated, which I've already explained, children of divinity, ultimacy, and eternity. So they will be used all along the way as long as they're needed for as long as they need over a period of time. Okay. All right. Does that unwrap that a little bit for you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what happens to them? Anybody's guess, right? Okay. Only thing I can come close to is if you ever watched Star Trek, what was it? The newer one with Picard in it. They had a guy on there called Q that was supposed to be some kind of super person that can snap things into existence. That's the only thing I could think of that could be something like that. Okay, probably where they got that. They probably read the book to come up with that. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Pam, would you take the next one? And the list of 5 there.
These uncreated non-creators are ever loyal to the Paradise Trinity and obedient to the ultimate. They are existent on 4 ultimate levels of personality activity and are functional on the 7 levels of the Absonite in 12 grand division, consisting of 1,000 major working groups of 7 classes each. These eventuated beings include 1, the architects of the master universe; 2, the transcendental recorders; 3, other transcendentalers; 4, primary eventuated master force organizers; and 5, associate transcendental master force organizers.
Okay, this paragraph kind of brings this together. Okay. First of all, these are not created like regular beings are, like we are, right? And they're non-creators, so they don't create anything. Okay. And they're always obedient to the Trinity and the ultimate, which is basically the Godhead of eternity, right? Okay. And they are broken down on the 4 different levels, and they have functional on 7 levels in between what they call the Absonite, or the in-between level, and 12 grand division, and they make them into working groups of 1,000 each in 7 classes. Now, this is not that important, but what comes out in the list is, remember when we talked about the architects of the master universe? These are the beings that get together with the unqualified absolute, right? They plan the outer space levels. They plan the local universes along with the creator sons to bring all the stuff together so the ultimate can take the primordial force and bring it together. And how do they do that? They do it through the primary eventuated master force organizers and the associate master force organizers. And guess what the transcendental recorders probably do? They keep track of all this, right? What's going on, what's being eventuated, and how the primordial force is brought together with the unqualified absolute and make this area ready for the creator sons. Okay, so that's how all this fits in here. Okay, that's why these beings are important. All right, so let's go on. Any questions about that before we move off of those? I mean,
Can you touch on again? Can you touch on again associate transcendental master force organizers?
Yeah, they are the beings that come in after the primary eventuated master force organizers bring the primary force in together, and the associate transcendental master force organizers literally take the molecules and the atoms and stuff like that and gives them the charge to get going, basically. Okay. Do you happen to remember? Let me show you a quick picture from last time. These are the guys. Give me 1 second here. These are the guys when we were talking about the power directors. Let's go all the way down here to the bottom. Right? That takes this puissant energy and takes it from primordial force into puissant energy and makes it ready for the master force organized. Remember this picture?
Mm-hmm.
That's where these guys come in, right? And what does this do? It makes the nebulae ready for the creator sons. Okay? So they're pretty important. All right. And then notice here it says, these two mighty force primordial manipulators work exclusively under the supervision of whom? The architects of the master universe. The top one here. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they all work together. They all have a job. And these are what? These are eventuated transcendental beings. That's where this comes in. Make sense? Yep.
Yes.
Jane?
I'm not sure I clearly understand if I heard you correctly. So they are eventuated, meaning they had a beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. What about the far end? Do they stop it being in existence when they're not needed?
We don't know that. You have to assume that, Jane, because they don't tell us a lot about them. But when their work is done, apparently they're not infinite. So apparently when their work is done, I guess they cease to exist until they're needed again. And then they're eventuated again. Right?
I guess they have no personality.
Yes, they have personality, but not in the sense that we think of personality. They have a no. Not in the sense that we think of personality as a gift from the Father, right? That makes us who we are. But their personality would probably be more along the line of they're all the same. In other words, they work together, they have enough personality to manipulate matter and things like that. But as far as individual will, I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Because they have what we call a group or mass personality.
Right. They're like a collective.
A collective, really. Yeah.
A collective of minds, and they work together. Yeah. That's why it says up here, they exist on 4 ultimate levels. In other words, this is the levels it depends on which area they work in. Yeah. And then they function on 7 levels of the absonite. We know absonite's in between finite and infinite, right? And then they they work in 12 grand divisions consisting of 1,000 major working groups in classes of 7. So they're all in groups, right? So they work together.
Yeah, that makes it very clear when you say they don't have individual, but they have the collective.
Yeah, collective personality or collective working.
That
would make
a lot.
sense.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, we'll always need them there, though.
Huh?
It seems like they'll always exist because we need them.
Well, they'll always exist as long as universes are developing, I would think, right? But they say they're not infinite. They're not. If they're not infinite, they don't go on forever, right?
Roger, I have a question. So animals don't go on, but do they have like a collective mind or spirit or whatever that
it's called the
benefits?
Local universe? Yeah, the local universe mother spirit.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't have a soul like human beings do, right? They don't like to call it personality, but they have individual personality. I mean, they're all different, right?
Yeah.
They don't like to call it in the book a personality like an individual personality, but they do definitely have different personalities. Because I can tell you, you know, all the cats we have, you know, they're none of them are alike. You know, each one of them are unique.
Yeah.
And so when they pass, all I can think of is the Sporongia and Spornasia. Okay, they are the only thing I can use, the term I can use is reincarnated. You know, they're reused. When they pass,
Recycled.
they're recycled in the same existence as the same type of being over again. So, you know, all the billions of animals on our planet and all the planets apparently go somewhere, right, when they pass. So, do they go back to the collective mind of the local universe mother spirit? I don't know. Do they maintain their individuality? I don't know. They don't tell us these things. We know they don't survive like human beings as a soul and go on an ascension plan, but who's to say we don't get to the mansion worlds and voila, there they, you know, they are.
We're hoping for that.
Yeah. So, you know, they don't survive in the sense of human beings survive.
You know, but according to the questions that were asked originally when the book was being written, probably the people did not ask questions about the animals. That's because they don't really emphasize it very much in the book.
The closest thing we have is an explanation by Jesus playing with the dog.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was playing with a dog outside his shop, and the boy asking, you know, do the animals have souls? And he said no, the animals do not have souls. They don't survive like human beings survive. Right. That was his answer. He didn't go on to explain, because he was talking to somebody that had no concept of really what a soul was. Right. So he didn't go on to explain what actually happens to them. He just said that they don't go on the ascension plan like human beings do. Right. That was the answer. So, you know, what actually happens to them is a mystery. And I guess we'll find out when we get to the mansion worlds. So, you know, they might be absorbed into the universal mother spirit, you know, local universal mother spirit. They may be recycled into animals again on the planet all over again. I don't know. They may be recycled into animals on the mansion world, because we know that the mansion worlds all have all sorts of animals on them, right? Even Urantia does, you know, the constellation headquarters. So if that's the case, where do all these animals come from and who maintains them? It has to be the local universe mother spirits, right? Makes sense? So does that answer your question?
Very
as
well,
good as
thank
I can?
you. Yeah.
All right. So it's a mystery. All right, let's go on. Jane, would you take the next one, please?
God as a super person eventuates. God as a person creates. God as a pre-person fragments. And such an adjuster fragment of himself evolves the spirit soul upon the material and mortal mind in accordance with the free will choosing of the personality which has been bestowed upon such a mortal creature by the parental act of God as a father.
Okay, so this breaks down the three types of ways that God the Father brings beings into existence, if you think about it, right? So as a super person, God the super person, God eventuates beings. We just talked about the eventuated beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. As a person, he creates. Now, how does he create? God creates through the sons, creator sons. So he creates mortal beings, entities, right? Finite beings. So that's two of them right there. And the third one, God as a pre-person fragments himself. Now, this is the big mystery, right? Because these fragments of himself becomes our adjusters. And these fragments of himself involves instilling this on us to create a spirit soul for us. So it's the adjuster that gives us the opportunity from becoming a finite material being with a mind to a spirit soul, which will go on forever. Okay, that's the transition. Now, the adjuster is not the only way that deity is fragmented. And this is very, very important because we're kind of special in a sense because we're humans. We get this fragment of God in which we confuse with, and that makes us real sons of God, is that adjuster. Okay, so when you fuse with that adjuster, you go from being a mortal person to what? A real son of God. So before we fuse with that adjuster, guess what we are? We're faith sons of God. We have faith that we will become sons of God. That's why they're called faith sons of God. So when we hit about the fifth mansion world, and we fuse with our adjuster, we become real sons of God. And at that point, we get new names because we're a new creature. We're born again, in essence. You remember when Jesus was on the planet and he said, to become part of the kingdom, ye must be born again. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think born again is? That means you have to make the decision of survival. You have to be born of spirit, not of material man. So that born again action is the moment you decide that you believe in God and you're going to survive this mortal world. That is being born again. Make sense?
Mhm.
Pretty simple. Easiest act we do is have faith that we're. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
The thought adjuster is sent to us by God, and I've always assumed it was a part of God.
Yes.
So that being a part of God, so when we merge with our thought adjuster, we become part of God, don't we? Not a son of God?
We do. Well, we become a son of God, which is a part of God. Okay, that's how it works. So the moment we fuse with the thought adjuster, Gary, we're no longer an outside entity hosting an adjuster any longer. Okay, so think of it this way. While we're on this planet and all the way up, most of us through the fifth mansion world, we're hosting a thought adjuster in our being, our minds, our souls, whatever. And that thought adjuster helps generate, if you would, the soul itself. So part of what gets transported to the mansion world is the soul. And the soul itself is even a mystery to the celestial beings. They don't know exactly where it comes from, how it appears, but they know that it's because of the thought adjuster going along with these finite entities. And when you fuse with that thought adjuster, that soul and you and the thought adjuster becomes one. Okay, so that's when you become a real son of God. Now, that means that you're still a part of God as a son of God, but you're also, if you would, I'm going to use the same word I used there earlier, you're part of the collective of God. You think about it. You're part of God at that point. You're part of the family of God. We're no longer faith sons any longer, but we actually become real parts of God the Father and sons of God.
Okay.
If you think of it, the creator sons are already what? Sons of God.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't have to have a thought adjuster because they're already sons of God. So when Jesus came to the earth, this is important. Why do you think he was assigned a thought adjuster?
Because he was one of the humans.
He was one of the humans. That's right. He needed the guidance of just like we do, of God the Father. Because his part of who he was, in essence, was kind of on a disconnect so that he could experience immortal life.
Yeah, if he
If he
didn't have a
was,
thought adjuster, he didn't have mortal experience in that area.
that's exactly right, Gary. That's exactly right. Now, we got way off this, but I think this stuff is important. I think it's important to understand it, right? So that thought adjuster makes you a son of God, right? It's a fragmented part of deity, right? God the Father. Now, these fragmented parts of deity do not have what? Personality. And this is important. God the Father gives us personality individually as soon as we're born. Okay? As soon as the air hits our brain, as soon as our skin hits the air, we are given personality. Okay? Before that point, we're a parasite on our mothers. Okay? When we're in the embryonic stage, we are parasites. That's hard to understand, but that's what we are. We're totally dependent on our mothers, right? There's no separation. Now, if a baby dies and before she is born or he is born, guess what happens to that baby? It gets a free pass to the nursery in the mansion worlds. Automatically, it's gone. Right?
Crib death.
Crib death, right?
Well,
Guess what happens to that baby up to age 5? Same thing. But the difference is that baby has received personality because it was born. As far as the cosmos goes, when your head hits the air, you are registered with the local universe, with the archangels, with the whole circuit that a human being was born. Okay? Up to that point, you were still a parasite on your mother. Okay? When you're born, though, you're registered as part of the cosmos. If you die before you reach the age of 5, guess what happens? You go immediately free pass to the mansion worlds. Okay? You with me still?
Does that include being a child with a soul that is aborted?
That includes a child that's aborted or any of the above. Okay? Any type of death.
Okay, that's a good. I'm glad you said that. That includes
Any
a
type
child.
of
So
death.
if a child is aborted, it goes to the mansion world nursery.
Nursery. That's right.
So you don't kill.
You don't kill a baby. That's right. Why do you think Adam and Eve, when they came to the planet, there was this big discussion years ago. I hate to get into this because we're trying to get through this paper, but there was a big discussion about eugenics. Do y'all know what eugenics are? It's all about trying to manipulate DNA and things to create more perfect people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler used it, went about it all wrong. Part of the reason the book was not published before Hitler was because these guardian angels, the celestial beings, all foresaw what Hitler was going to do with all this stuff. They did not want to give this information to Hitler and his group, basically. Okay? That is not the kind of eugenics I'm talking about. Adam and Eve was supposed to give us information how to mix our bloodlines, how to get rid of defective human beings, those that are nuts, those that have mental problems, those that have diseases that can't be fixed. Their bloodline was supposed to fix every disease out there to improve the human stock. Okay, that was part of the job of Adam and Eve. Okay, this is not a bad thing. This is trying to improve the race, just like you breed cattle to make cattle better, right? It's the same principle with human beings. You breed children, you made up people to try to create a better race of people. So you want to make sure that the brightest, the best, the healthiest human beings that come along have the opportunity to do what? Reproduce. Okay? That's what
You know
it's
what you're
called.
saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What you're saying now in practical application on Earth, to my limited knowledge, okay,
Right.
is that let's take it for cows. A farmer's
Yeah.
trying to get a better cow, okay?
Right.
The
Healthier
cows, healthier cow, okay? Healthier cow. The cows that come out that are not what he wants, he doesn't breed.
He doesn't breed. That's right.
Okay. So if we translate that to humans, we would, people who produce inferior children or children that are inferior, we don't allow them to breed.
Yeah, you just sterilize them at birth and then they go through a normal life like everyone else. They just don't reproduce. That's how it's
Okay,
done.
That's how
okay. That's what they
It's
did
not
many
aborted.
years ago.
Yeah, it's
And
not
they
about
did it in North
aborting
Carolina.
babies. It's not about aborting babies. It's not about any of that, right? It's about using your own common sense to make sure your children are healthy enough to reproduce. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. They actually did that in North Carolina several years ago.
Yeah. Now this
and there
is
was a
not
great
what
big lawsuit.
yeah, this is not what Hitler did. Okay.
No, I'm not saying what this is what they did.
No.
40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago,
Yeah,
more than
it's
that.
called eugenics. It was called eugenics back then. It was very, very popular in the 30s and 40s. It just came into being and stuff, and they figured out that you can manipulate DNA, make better humans, make better babies, make better cattle, make better everything. Okay, but it's not trying to play God. It's trying to get rid of the disease and make the human beings and the animals better. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Big difference between Hitler trying to create the ultimate race, right? That's not what he had in mind. He wanted to wipe out everybody else, right? He was not for anything, any race whatsoever except his own race. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about eventually melding all the races, which will happen in the next 200,000 years. They'll all blend and we will have one race eventually. All the races will blend together. It's happening right now. How many mixed marriages do you see right now? It's bound to happen. It's going to happen. You can't stop it no matter how prejudiced you are or anything else. It's going to happen. Mark my words, right? Okay, so how we get so far off on this? Anyway.
I was a great help, Roger. I was a great help. I'm sorry.
That's all right. The point is this. Any children that die before age of decision automatically goes to the mansion worlds. Those after 5 years old, when they get their adjusters, get assigned guardian angels, just like everybody else. And guess what happens when that child dies at 6 or 7, not having made a decision? It goes to the mansion worlds. It goes to the nursery. Okay? So if you've lost a child and he was 6 or 7 years old and you wonder, well, he didn't find God, don't worry about it. You'll see him again on the mansion worlds. That child is still attached to its parents until it's one of the two parents gets there, and that parent has the right to raise that child just as it did on this planet. You follow me? Now, guess what happens to those children that their parents don't want to raise them?
They're raised by others.
They're raised by others. Guys like me that never had any children have the opportunity to raise children.
Oh, Roger, are you in for a treat? You think you got weight problems now? You're going to be skinny.
That's the way
you got to go through 3, man.
Three children. Every human being has to certify that they have raised 3 children.
But Gary, you have to realize that this is the mansion worlds.
Yes.
It's not here on Earth.
Okay. Here's another question. I have adopted 2. Okay.
Yes. Those count as 2 of your children.
Okay, but they weren't babies. They were like 2 and 3.
That's okay.
I adopted 2 abused children.
That's fine. You're still their
God
father.
bless
You're
you.
still their
God
mother.
bless
Still
you and
your
mother.
mother. Biology does not make a parent.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. You know, I could tell you stories that would curl your ears about being raised, you know, but a good father and a good mother has nothing to do with who gave you a sperm or egg. Okay.
That's right.
Nothing whatsoever. So, and there are parents that have raised 3 children who have to certify you fit as a parent before you get your certification as being a parent. And every single person has to be certified before they get through the 7 mansion worlds. Everyone. Why is that, do you think? Because in order to understand God the Father, you have to have been what? A parent.
Father. A parent.
A father
Okay.
or a mother yourself, right? Makes sense? So if you've had 3 children, you've got a leg up on me. That's for sure. You know, I might seem like Mr. Smart person, but that don't give me anything when I get to the mansion worlds. Okay.
Well, you'll get gray.
I've already lost hair, so we're getting there anyway. Okay. So let's get back to fragmented entities of deity. So we understand that the thought adjuster is a fragment of God. It's a fragmented entity, right? And that's a pre-person fragment, pre-personal fragment. Who gives that fragment personality?
God the Father?
We do.
We do, right?
That's why it's so hard, eh, Roger?
Yeah, that's why it's so hard.
That is why it's so hard.
It is because God the Father gives us the personality so that we can give that personality back to the thought adjuster when we fuse with it, right?
But we have to develop it in through the 5 Vegidant. We have to give birth to that soul through, shall I call, righteous living, experience.
That's right.
And we got to aim to be godlike.
Yep.
Aim.
All those things are true.
Yeah.
You hit it on the head. You hit it right on the head.
It's a hard road.
It's a hard road. It is.
You know, the older I get and maybe the wiser I get and the more observant and reflective, I can now know decent, upright, considered good people that I'm not sure is going to make it. You know, that
we
may
all,
not,
we
you
all
know, they may
those
go
people.
to, you know, they may go to church, but they don't know, you know.
Well, how many times did Jesus said you're almost in the kingdom of heaven? You're almost in the kingdom of heaven when he met people, right? Because they were just like those people, Gary. They are right on the edge of believing and making it to the mansion worlds, but they haven't made that final decision. And you have to make the final decision. That's all there is to it, right?
Roger, the final decision is to want to go on?
To want to go on, to believe in God as your father and believe in your own survival, right?
So it's a 2-step thing.
It's a 2-step thing.
So
you have to believe in God, you have to want to go on, right?
What does a Buddhist, how does a Buddhist figure in there?
I don't figure in a Buddhist. I don't know. There's some things I don't know.
It's best to just not know.
You know, I can't go through all the religions and say this and will make it. There's going to be samples of every religion. I know that when we get to the mansion world, but which ones, you know, may not make it or will make it, I don't know. It's individuals, I think, makes the difference.
My brother was a Buddhist, but I always wonder if maybe he just wanted to go on.
Well, if he didn't, he had the concept of fatherhood of God, he's going to go on. You know, now I always have to bring this in. I know I'm getting still way off the thing. Do you think since Jesus created us, right? Jesus is our highest concept of God. That's hard for us to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus's Father is God the Father, right? Do you think you can get off the first mansion world without recognizing Jesus as your God?
No.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could.
And
I
it
don't see
would
how.
be so easy if people recognized him now.
And now in this life,
Yeah.
right? They
It
would
would be
benefit
easy
greatly.
for them, you know,
But yeah,
like the
benefit greatly.
comfort. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Better question.
comfort that they get through life.
Right. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. I thought earlier we had, for survival, you had to recognize that there is a single God. Okay. A God.
Whether that be Jesus or God the Father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
Right.
that the request? Not just specifically Jesus, but God.
Yeah, either one.
So it could be.
Jesus, if you think of, is the vicegerent for God the Father always, right?
Yeah. What I'm saying though is, but they don't have to say like a Jew.
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a discussion with a Jewish friend of mine said Tuesday, and he doesn't believe in Jesus, but he believes in God. And he
Okay.
likes the Jewish religion because he says that no person, he is responsible for his own actions on earth here. And he tries to live right. I know that for a fact. Okay.
Yeah.
And he believes in God. So I'm saying he's going to go on, but he doesn't believe in Jesus.
Well, the question is this, Gary: does he not believe in Jesus because he has a lack of understanding? That's the big question.
He doesn't believe in Jesus
know.
because he's Jewish.
Well, that has nothing to do with it. It may be a lack of understanding who Jesus really is.
Oh, I think it is.
I really think, I don't see how any logical mind could go through the whole process. If you can get through this book, I don't know how any logical mind could not accept Jesus as being your God. I mean, it just wouldn't make sense to me. But that does not mean that person will not be in the mansion world, Gary. We don't call the shots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just all there is to it. And our judgment is not worth flip. I can tell you that, because our judgment is always an error. I mean, no matter how perfect we try to be, we cannot judge people. That is not our job. Even Jesus did not judge people. Remember? He always shot it up to the ancients of days. So really, we don't have the wisdom and are not capable of judging rightly. Makes sense? So do you think I can sit here and say because someone doesn't believe in Jesus, they're not going to make it to the mansion world? I can't do that. I really can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the wisdom for that. It's not my job. Not my job, man.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger, it reminds me of that saying of Jesus when you will correct me because you know this, I don't. But he said to one of the apostles, "What's it to you?
Yes.
If he's going to be here when I return, what's it to you? What's it to us?" Yeah.
It doesn't affect us, does it?
Yeah.
We have to worry about
business.
us. That's none of our business. We have to take, and I always come back to being a Jew. I always come back to Nicodemus, right? Nicodemus, very wise man, smart, any part of the Sanhedrin. And he was constantly asking Jesus questions because why? Because he truly wanted to know, right? Mm-hmm. And how many times did he tell Nicodemus, you're right at the edge of being part of the kingdom, right? And that's where the story of being what came from?
Born again.
Born again. It was Nicodemus, right? And guess who headed up part of the church organization when Jesus left?
Nicodemus.
Yeah.
That's right. So who are we to say?
Who are we to say?
That's right. Okay, let's go on to the next paragraph. Fragmented entities of deity. And Gary, I believe you're up.
Okay. 5, fragmented entities of deity. This order of living existence, originating in the universal Father, is best typified by the thought adjusters. Though these entities are by no means the only fragmentations of the pre-personal reality of the first source and center, the functions of the other than adjuster fragments are manifold and little known. Fusion with an adjuster or other such fragmented constitutes the creature a father fused being. So I was a little bit ahead of a paragraph ahead.
Yes, you were. Now let me bring something out here. It's talking about, in this paragraph, it talks about other fragmentations of the pre-personal reality. What does it say here? The first source and center. Do you see that?
Yeah.
The first source and center. Now, the next paragraph immediately goes into fragmentations of the third source and center. Do you see that? The first line. I wanted to bring this up because of this. There's other fragmentations of the universal Father, okay, other than just the thought adjuster. But I want to bring up the point that even the fragmentations of the third source and center, or the second source and center, which is the fragmentations of the creator sons, those still originate from where?
God, the Father.
The first source and center. And that's why it says here that there are other fragmentations of the first source and center. Then it goes into the other fragmentations, including the third source and the Son. Okay? But I want you to realize even those originate from whom?
God the Father.
God the Father. That's right. Okay? All right, Diane, you're back up again.
The fragmentations of the pre-mind spirit of the third source and center, though hardly comparable to the Father fragments, should be here recorded. Such entities differ very greatly from adjusters. They do not as such dwell on spiriton, nor do they as such traverse the mind gravity circuits. Neither do they indwell mortal creatures during the life in the flesh. They are not pre-personal in the sense that the adjusters are, but such fragments of pre-mind spirit are bestowed upon certain of the surviving mortals, and fusion therewith constitutes them spirit-fused mortals, in contradistinction to adjuster-fused mortals.
Interesting that paragraph is.
It is. We could spend the rest of the night just on this paragraph, but I'm going to try to get through it here a little bit.
Well, you've confused me, so.
Okay. Well, I've done my job then. We're done for tonight. But now,
well, I'll tell you, I'm going to make this into a little commercial. I saw my hearing aid doctor today, and she's told me that if I get hearing aids, it make me smarter. So if anybody would like to contribute.
Well, Gary, I'll tell you a little secret. I have hearing aids I've had for 8 years, and I bet I haven't worn them but 8 times in 8 years.
No way.
Yeah.
Wear them very much, eh?
Yeah. I just, anyway, we won't go into
that. He actually reads lips.
I read lips really well.
He does, really. So don't say anything in back of him, no.
Yeah. Okay. We all have our little crosses to bear, right? Okay, let's go into the third source and center of fragmentations. First, they are not exactly like the adjusters, okay? First, the third source and center does not give fragments to mortal creatures while they're still mortal. Okay, number one. So in order to get a spirit fragment, you have to have passed on to where? Dimension worlds.
Yes, dimension worlds.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So the spirit fragments are for those beings, usually single mind beings on planet where they're single mind instead of the dual mind or the triple mind. Okay, we're dual mind beings on this planet. So we are perfect for adjusters, so are the triple-minded beings. They are even more spiritual. But the single-minded beings, for some reason, are not on a higher spiritual level. Okay, so it's hard for them to fuse with the adjusters. So if that is the case, when they get to the mansion worlds and they find it impossible to fuse with the adjusters, then they are given spirit fragments. Okay, and that's where these spirit fragments come from. Okay, and they work much like the father fragments do. However, if they're fused with a spirit fragment, these mortals do not go on to Spiritington. Okay, what is Spiritington? That's one of the satellites that go around paradise, right? Spiritington is the satellite of the sun, and all spirits consider Spiritington their home, including us. So we will go through there on the way to paradise, and it will be considered home for us on our way to paradise. However, since the spirit fused mortals do not have an adjuster, they do not consider Spiritington their home. Okay, they won't go that thing, and they won't traverse the mind gravity circuits, which means what? They will not go on the paradise ascent. They will become super universe or local universe permanent citizens. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. But these...
Go ahead.
I am thinking that these spirit fused, just like we are a fragment fused, and they are pre-mind spirit, their journey is very, very difficult too, just like ours is difficult, because it's pre-personal fragment that we get.
That's right.
Well, yeah. So it's a lot for them to work out.
Yes, it is. You know, and okay, now we still have one more fragment to talk about, and that's the sun fragments. They become local universe permanent citizens. Okay, the spirit fused can become super universe citizens, and the sun fused become local universe permanent citizens. And why is it this way? You might wonder.
Because of Jesus. I mean, Jesus is in this universe, so he's, when it comes from him, it's in his domain.
It stays in his domain. That's exactly correct. Now, the other thing is this: all the universes have a permanent personnel. Okay, and this gives all the universes a base of a permanent personnel throughout eternity. So not everyone's leaving to go to paradise.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them stay here through eternity, and they will be the ones that greet all the people that come in from the outer space levels, and they will interact with these beings, and they will be part of the ascension plan for them. Make sense?
Didn't we previously discuss there's 1, 2, 3, and 4-lobed creatures.
3-lobed.
And the 4, creatures. Huh?
3-lobed creatures.
There's 3. And the 1-lobed creatures don't get a thought adjuster. They have to be spirit adjusted.
Fused. Right.
Fused. So that would be for like the 3-lobed creatures.
No, spirit fuse would be for the single lobe creatures. The three lobe creatures would be able to fuse with their adjusters. Okay, but some of the single lobe will fuse with spirit fragments, and some of them will fuse with sun fragments. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
Some of them fuse with spirit fragments, some of them fuse with sun fragments.
You
Depends
know,
on their situation.
Is it correct then for me to think that the spirit fused, do they become like one of the beings that we talked about before, like that are created by the third source and center?
They're not created by the third source and center. They're created by they're created by the local universe, Mother Spirit, and the Creator Son, just like everyone else was.
Okay.
The thing of it is, the reason they may be first or 1, 2, or 3 lobe beings is because of the origination of their planet. Okay,
Right,
and this is hard to understand.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're born on a planet that has no atmosphere, they don't breathe, they get their, different things, different types of creatures will have different types of bodies because of their physical makeup. Okay, and many of the single lobe beings are that way because they live on a planet that was created, and that's the only way they can be to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me?
Yeah.
They may be a non-atmospheric planet. In other words,
Yeah.
they don't have air to breathe. They get all their nutrition through the sun, just like the plants do from the sun. They get the nutrition directly from the sun.
Yeah, they could be water creatures.
Pardon me?
Could they be water creatures?
They could be water creatures also. Yes, they could be.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if all on this planet, the first creatures that got the concept of God the Father were the porpoises, then we would all be porpoises.
Right.
Okay, because they're mammals, just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we got them because we were developed from lemurs. That's the way we ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Just think if we were. Just think the first ones that got it was killer whales.
Yeah, it would have been. It's interesting too, because everybody thinks we developed from apes, and they keep looking for this missing link, and they tell us in the Urantia book there is no missing link.
No.
Okay, there's not one. There's not a link between apes and humans. We didn't come from apes. We came from lemurs. Lemur is a different type of creature than an ape is. Okay.
It is?
So
aren't they in the same family?
They're in the same
Don't
family.
Apes called lemurs junior or something?
Yes, they do, but they're a different type of creature than apes. Okay. We didn't develop from apes. The family split. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Ivan and Fanta basically developed from lemurs, and that's where all humanity came from. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's our history.
And
okay.
An island we came from has vanished. It's off of South Africa.
Yeah, it's gone. Okay. Let me read this last little paragraph before we quit. We're already out of time. I tried to get through 3 paragraphs.
You did try. You weren't forceful enough, Roger.
I know.
Too many great questions.
All right. Still more difficult of description is the individualized spirit of a creator son, union of which constitute the creature a sun-fused mortal. And still there are other fragmentations of deity. So that's not all of them. Okay. That's the point I wanted to make. So this is the fragmentations of deity, which gives us opportunity to become sons of God. Right. All right. That was a tough one to get through, wasn't it? Okay, well, we'll start from the next one, super personal beings next time. Sorry, y'all at home. If you wanted to get through this fast, boy, you missed out tonight.
I want to understand it.
Yeah, we're here to understand it, not to buzz through it, right? Okay, well, we're at 7 p.m., so I guess I better shut up for tonight. Let's have a quick prayer.
Wow, it's a long chapter, Roger.
It is a long chapter. It is. This has got 100, I forget, 100 and something. Oh, 114 things just on this, but we're going to get through the rest of this next time. We'll get on the universal personality register. This is just difficult stuff. Okay. Pam, would you like to close us in a prayer, short prayer here?
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us together and sharing this revelatory information with us and helping us to better understand it with Dr. Roger Paul's insights. It is wonderful to be able to come together and commune in the spirit. And hopefully we can also serve others by reaching out to them in different ways and presenting the book to them. And we ask this in the name of Christ, Michael, our son.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us at home. Facebook Live. Let me stop the live stream first. And stop the recording.